Rip it. I have a quick demo. Okay. So I think I already demoed a couple weeks ago. You can now go like left and right on Legends. Now you can also go top and bottom. That's fun. Um, and then the real fun thing was like we were originally having problems with resizing on top and bottom, but that obviously works pretty well now. Um, and a couple other things. So if you throw in a quantitative uh, field that generates a quantitative legend, you can now put this thing top and bottom. That's fun. Resizing should still all work, of course. And then there's another fun one. If you make this thing nominal, so we get a ton of legend items. And getting this thing to actually respond uh, in a sort of like responsive and dynamic way was fairly difficult, surprisingly. So like obviously when the chart's this large, we can allow the legend to take up a pretty good amount of space. But as it gets smaller, we don't want the legend to take priority. And so now the top and bottom legends can shrink appropriately and they stay scrollable. And then one last fun little wild card is that there's this third kind of legend, which is this size legend. And if I map size to count, I steal my own thunder by showing that the size legend also will render top or bottom. And it can be moved independent of the other legends. It could be on the right. Um, or the left. It can be anywhere, just like the other legends. And last but not least, all of this stuff works. So here's a dashboard. Obviously, it works on the dashboard, but it also works through the scheduler. The end.
Awesome. Yeah, it looked like if I saw correctly in that scenario where the legend was super large, and then so in the dashboard in the workbook it was scrollable. In the When you schedule it, it just kind of gets cut off. It looks like, which I'm not saying is a I don't know what else we can do about it, but is that the right understanding?
Yeah, so Colin, cut the demo video before these comments because I intentionally didn't mention any of that. There's still a bunch of stuff to be done here. Your short answer is you're right. Slightly
I don't know
longer,
necessarily that that's the wrong answer. To be clear,
Yeah, I agree.
well, slightly longer answer and technical explanation here is that there are a bunch of there are a bunch of problems like getting the this legend and basically any legend that goes through the scheduler is rendered by Vega itself. And getting Vega to position a legend is like moving heaven and earth. It's incredibly frustrating. And so the default setting is basically this one where it sort of left aligns with the left axis here. And instead of going the incredibly complicated route, I think I want to just enumerate all the caveats to the sales and field teams for now. And we can do a second pass that tries to make the alignments a little bit prettier. And then similarly, like as you noted, these things get cut off, which is a super bummer because I wrote a bunch of code that locally doesn't cut them off in the static renderer, and then learned late in the game that the way Vega executes its expressions, which you have to use to dynamically change like their legends, is in a second pass. And so basically it does one pass, renders everything, and then does a second pass and executes the expressions. But the scheduler has already captured the output before the second pass has happened. So I have some ideas about how to try to minimize the amount of legends that get cut off, but the V1 of this may be to ship it as is because when we have a smaller set of legends, it's totally fine. And then
Definitely,
V2 might
yeah.
be to make these incremental improvements.
Strongly agree that this is shippable.
Do we have the power to center this horizontally if we wanted to, or is it pretty rigid in terms of like what we can do to it?
I think we do, but it requires some hair pulling and like fighting Vega. It's just
Yeah.
Vega provides very few. Like the biggest issue is Vega, I think, operates under the assumption that you are building a thing that has some sort of like well understood bounds around the data that you're displaying. And so if you want to position like bottom center, then you just manually input a bunch of padding, like static padding values, and you're good. And that works sometimes, but obviously, like if you're clicking around and you're in AutoViz, it can make legends look horrible. Um, so yeah, I would say that's like a V2 pass or V3 pass.
Okay.
I mean, I think ultimately we basically have to create, there's a larger project here at some point in the future of like creating our own legend renderer for the scheduler that isn't constrained by Vega.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about it from a scheduling aspect, actually. Um, I just think that people will want to just people want fine grained control over layout of everything. So,
Oh yeah, well, if we're just talking HTML, that's way easier. Like
oh yeah, yeah.
making
I
this layout
would
in the
be,
middle is super
I
easy.
wouldn't even, yeah, I do not care about it in the rendered context. I think someone's going to want to take two things, like if there's two keys, and move it to the center. Um, I feel like that's probably the more important use
Yeah,
case.
that's super easy. So hopefully going out today or early next week.
I've got a small one.